So today we're talking about my favorite and least favorite lenses. For no reason other than for fun. And just to note, there's really nothing wrong with any of the lenses we're gonna talk about today. It's really just my opinion, to be honest. We're not gonna get into the technical specs of both. We're just talking about the lenses I reach for the most and which ones I don't and why. Let's start with my favorite lenses, because that's more fun. Which one? Let's talk about the newest edition. This is the 35mm f1.4 G Master lens. This, I didn't know how much I loved a 35mm focal length until I started shooting with it. I mean, a lot of film back in the day was shot with 35mm, and it looks like, I mean, a lot of people say 24 is the actual perspective of your eye, like what your vision actually sees is 24mm, but 35, it looks like a true interpretation of what you're seeing. So when you have a really low f-stop, it creates that beautiful depth of field and bokeh and just that like creaminess. I just love this for portraits. I love it for shooting video. We shoot with this lens a lot in the studio because it's wide but not too wide, but you still get that really nice depth and it shows off the space that you're in. It's just a beautiful focal length. Next, let's talk about I guess we'll get to the telephoto lens after. We're gonna talk about the 85mm G Master f1.4. Anytime we're shooting pretty much anything, like whether it's video or photos, and we want to get some beautiful detail shots, whether it's like of leaves or of raindrops, or say we're shooting a product in studio, the 85 is a beautiful lens for that. And it's for travel. Both of these are pretty compact, so we do love that. Both of these I travel with because this is a great variety. If I was bringing in something that was kind of an in-between focal length, I'm kind of like, what's the point? Because you're getting both sides of the spectrum here. When you're shooting video or photos, you're gonna get a completely different look when you've got something wider and tighter. And for the record, I didn't include the 24-70 or the 16-35 in this crew because those are kind of, although I do love them, those are kind of your standard go-tos that you just need to have, but they're not the lenses I get excited about reaching for. They're not the ones I'm like, ooh, yes, I get to take a photo with the 24-70. These are kind of like our fun lenses. But you get the gist. They're a polarizing look and you want variety for your photos. This is my child, and I'll be honest, this is Chris's because it's really expensive. I'm probably gonna have to buy my own because I think he's getting really tired of me stealing it. All of the photos on this wall in the office are all taken with this. You can get, this is the 100-400 by the way. It's f4.5 to 5.6. So it's a variable aperture, which isn't the best, but the thing is, when you are using this, that doesn't really matter that much. Like, it's still so far away that you're going to get depth. Obviously, this isn't a lens I reach for every single day, but it is a lens that I bring every single time I travel because I can get those beautiful details in the distance on mountaintops of hills. And because it's a telephoto, it's compressing everything together into this beautiful flat image. And if you have like some clouds and some hills or like some different textures, you can create these really artistic, beautiful photos. And for shooting wildlife, oftentimes wildlife is going to be really, really far away. You need something like this. You need a high quality telephoto lens to be able to capture that. We shot puffins on our most recent trip to Cape Breton. That was a really tough photo to get. We did get a few good ones of like eagles and seals, but that was all thanks to this lens and our A7R4 because that gave us the ability to crop in because the puffins were really far away. I would never let this go, and we're gonna have to because I don't like sharing and I feel bad. Now, before we get into the lenses that I hate, you know what's easier than this? Storyblocks. Storyblocks doesn't want you to sacrifice your creative vision due to time, budget, or resources. Every creator should have a Storyblocks subscription. Storyblocks is a complete library of 4K and HD footage, After Effects templates, music, sound effects, so many things to make your creative vision come to life. It's also royalty free, so you can use it for commercial or personal use. There are subscriptions for every budget, so you can choose a plan that's flexible for you, so you can just get back to creating and not worry about your finances. What I love about Storyblocks is they're committed to including more inclusive and diverse content to help creators tell their unique individual individual and authentic stories. How they're doing that is hiring creators from marginalized communities to increase representation of the diverse world that we live in. Their unlimited access plan gives you access to over 1 million assets in their library so you can create more, spend less, and just focus on creating. And if you're a part of a marketing team or larger organization, there's their enterprise licensing plan that'll allow you to distribute your content and these assets wherever and whenever. If you guys are interested in trying out Storyblocks, visit the link on this screen and in the description below to try it out. Back to the office. Now let's move into the lenses I hate or don't like. I won't say hate, that's kind of mean. I guess we just talked about the telephoto, let's talk about this one now. This is the 70-200. A lot of people buy this lens before buying the 100-400, and let's address that. Not only is it cheaper, it also has a fixed aperture, f2.8. It's great if you're shooting weddings, events, sports photography, a lot of things where you need to capture something that's far away, but it's not as far away as like a mountaintop or wildlife. Oftentimes, this is just not tight enough to get those detail shots I want when we're traveling or of wildlife. It's just, it's not close enough. So although this was the lens that we originally purchased before the 100-400, it's not something we use very often. Chris thought when we both were kind of fighting over the 100-400, he's like, oh, let's just get a teleconverter and this will be, you know, the same focal length as the 100-400. But what we found was the autofocus just wasn't fast enough, and when we're trying to take photos of puffins, they move very quickly and the autofocus just has to be on point. So if you're in the same boat as me and you don't shoot very much of those styles, then I would recommend the 100-400 instead, based on our experience. Let's talk about the 50. I have a complicated relationship with the 50mm f1.4. It used to be my favorite focal length, and one of the first lenses I went out and bought myself was a nifty 50 that, what was it like, was it $100 or a couple $100s? It was my favorite lens because it was my first lens where I could actually achieve beautiful bokeh and depth and get details, and I was all about the detail shots. Like when Chris and I were shooting weddings, I was like, okay, you go and get the wides with the Ronin and I'll run around to all the tables and get all the little place cards and the flowers and all of those things that I know the bride really cares about. So the 50mm was great for that because it's wide enough to get quite a bit in the frame, but it's tight enough to showcase details. But the thing is, for portraits, I'm reaching for the 35. I think it looks much more cinematic and film-like. And then if I want something with a lot more depth, then I'm shooting with the 85. If I'm shooting, you know, down a long road or something, then I'm reaching for the 85, or maybe in that case the 70-200, but usually the 85. And the 50, because it sits right between the 35 and the 85, we don't bring this, especially because we're already bringing our, whatever you want to call them, like our necessary lenses, like the 24-70 or the 16-35. That's kind of why we never use this guy. Again, this is a lens that we thought about selling, but you know, once in a while it comes in handy. Occasionally in the office we're shooting with a teleprompter, so I can't be super close to the lens, or you see my eyes reading across the screen. We usually do those when we're doing like courses and things like that. And that's when we shoot with something that's a little bit tighter than the 35. It's a great lens, but don't use it that often. Last but not least, we're gonna talk about, this is an odd one that probably most of you don't even have in your kit. So the 12-24 f4, we use this in literally okay, maybe there's one other scenario, but like, so 1.5 scenarios. The full reason that this lens is in our kits, ours and my husband's kits, is because we often go on helicopter rides and it's a really small space and you need a really, really wide lens. That's literally the only reason we shoot with this, but it's f4. So if it's in the evening, it's kind of hard. It's not that great. It's just, I guess it's fine. I'm like debating on whether I like this or not in this present moment. Like, I guess f4 is fine for what it does. The only other situation we use it for is when we're doing, like, if you did real estate photography, and we actually did shoot something for a friend of mine runs a beauty facial clinic place, and we shot their promo video that's on their website and a little tour of the space. And because some of like their treatment rooms were a little bit smaller, we had to use this guy. And that's kind of the nature of real estate photography, is you need quite a wide lens for that. It serves its purpose. If you shoot real estate photography, which I would recommend if you guys are trying to build a business in photography, then this would be the guy to pick up. But because we usually use it when we're going on helicopter rides, I don't use it that much. We're done. those are my favorite and least favorite lenses. Let me know what your favorites and least favorites are, and if I offended you on your favorite lens in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, please give it a like down below, subscribe if you're not already, and hit the notification bell for to get notified for all future videos. And I'm gonna finish my smoothie now.